Hey, bestie, and welcome back to Crafters Roundtable, the podcast where I get to sit down with individuals in the quilting, sewing, and crafting space and learn more about their insights and experiences in this wonderful world of crafting. Today's guest has such a great story, and I can't wait for her to join me at the table. But before we get started, please make sure you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you are watching or listening so you can stay up to date with everything going on here at Crafters Roundtable. So, without further ado, join Kim and I at the roundtable and let's get chatting. Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm doing really well, Corey. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. It is a little rainy and cloudy here, so we're getting over that dreary feeling and we're here chatting, so that makes me happy.
Perfect. It's a perfect day to be chatting, eh? Or
Yeah,
quilting.
exactly. Let's see. So, last time you and I ran into each other was at QuiltCon. And
Yes.
that was such a fun experience. I always like to ask people, and you'll give the viewers kind of your perspective on QuiltCon. What did you think of it, and how like it's just a wonderful place to be, right?
Oh, it was amazing. It was my first time at QuiltCon. I ran into so many people who said it was their first time as well,
Oh
and
wow,
it was just an amazing show. The quilts, obviously, right, were just stunning. And I'm not a modern quilter,
right?
so if you're more a traditional quilter and you're thinking QuiltCon isn't for you, you got to change your mind because the quilts were just stunning. So much inspiration that I got from looking at the quilts, and of course, talking to vendors, like you, Corey, and other people that I ran into. It was just a great experience all around, and so well organized. I've got to really give a shout out to the board of the Modern Quilt Guild because it was just so well organized and easy to navigate. Even for a first timer like me.
Yeah, it is run like a very fine oiled machine. It is such a great experience, and for anyone that is kind of on the fence about going to QuiltCon, you need to go because it is so much fun.
For sure.
But let's get into a little bit about you. So, for those of you that are listening or watching, this is Kim Jamieson-Hirst, and I would like you, Kim, if you want to give yourself just kind of a little introduction to everyone so they can get to know a little bit more about you before we dive into the rest of the show.
Sure. Well, I am in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. First off, I'll tell you where I am. So I live and create in Calgary, which is the Wild West, Yahoo, out here. So, but yeah, it's a great place to live, actually. And I've been quilting for, I guess, over 20 years. So I didn't grow up with quilters. I didn't know anything about quilting. And I just thought it was, done by hand and that. Like I had no interest in it. When I saw some people doing it, I was like, oh, I have a squirrel mind. I jump around very quickly from thing to thing. And I didn't think I'd have the patience to do something like that. But I had a couple of friends who actually, were quilters, and I was kind of interested in what they were doing. And then I found out you could do it by machine. So I took a class and I fell really hard into that rabbit hole of quilting, right? So pretty quickly I started, making my own patterns, and then I was blogging. YouTube came along. I've been on YouTube. It's just last week actually was my 14th anniversary on YouTube with Chatterbox quilts, and I just wanted to share my knowledge and learn from other people as well. So that's just kind of how it started, and now I am an online course creator. I have a membership. I think we're going to get into some of those things in a few minutes here, so I won't go into too much right now, but I kind of do all the things online, I guess, and I love it.
Yeah, no, you definitely have an incredible presence online. I was reading up some of your things on your on the website and on your YouTube channel, of course. And there's so many incredible things that we will be getting into. First, congratulations on your 14th anniversary on YouTube. That is a big milestone. That's super
Thank you.
awesome. You're welcome. Um, but you did mention the name of your company whenever you were kind of giving us that intro of yourself. So tell us, what inspired you to start Chatterbox Quilts? I know you said you weren't really a much of a quilter starting out in the very
Yeah.
beginning. Now you are. So what inspired you to start that business, and how has it evolved into the brand and the platform that it is today?
Well, that's a good question because I have to think back because things just kept, kept snowballing. And I was saying to my husband who helps me, he's my videographer and editor, and I'm saying to him like, "Well, why did we start this? What were we?" He goes, "I don't know. I don't remember." But I think it was just an opportunity. I actually took some courses about doing business online, and that was quite a few years ago actually, and have taken many courses actually about online businesses and YouTube and that type of thing. And I think I just wanted to, create a business that I had a passion for, right? So I was very, and still am, very passionate about quilting. So that kind of made sense to do that, right? So we just started, as things were available. So, for example, as memberships became a thing or as online courses became a thing, we just jumped into those and learned all we needed to create those and continue to do that today.
Awesome. So you also mentioned that you design your own patterns. Talk to us about that kind of that design process. How does that work? How does someone find your patterns? I'd like to know a little bit more about that because each designer has a different way that they approach patterns, and I like to hear everybody's view on it.
Right. Well, I guess first off, it started with, I look at it, and I still do this today. I look at, because I buy other people's patterns too, of
Hmm.
course,
Hmm.
and I will look at a pattern and think, what else could I do with this, or what parts could I pick out and do something else with? I've used now EQ8, but way back in EQ5, I think even have used that to design a lot of my patterns. And that's kind of how I do it. Back in the day, I also used different Adobe suite products. I don't now. I use different products than that now, but just started getting into that and designing it. But I think, getting inspired by what I see other quilters doing, colors that I see other people using. I don't, it's kind of interesting because I don't get inspired by nature and things like that, like other people, will often say they get inspired by, going outside and seeing things. I get inspired when I go to quilt shows and I look at something and I think, huh, I could take that little part and I would change it and do something different with it and use that. And then I'll go into EQ8 and start designing and come up with, what I like there. And I love using that software because one of the big things I like about it is how you can import actual fabrics. So you can create your design and see what it would look like in the actual fabric you want to use. So that's sort of how I do it, I guess.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it definitely having that benefit of importing in the actual fabric can really change the way that that quilt pattern comes together. You know,
Mhm.
when you're looking at designing your sample or your overall quilt, in a full way, having those actual prints or those actual designs can be like, oh no, that's not going to work out at all the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah, so
Um,
true.
or it's like, wow, that's a whole different design that I wasn't even planning on. So
Yeah,
sorry.
that too. That's a happy accidents. Yes.
um and so also you've got your YouTube channel, which we talked about a few minutes ago about the 14th anniversary, and you've got a quite a loyal following on that YouTube channel, got quite a great amount of subscribers on there. And it has kind of become that go-to channel for many quilters in my opinion. What inspired you to start sharing those videos and kind of showing this journey, and what's your most like a surprising part of the journey being on YouTube?
Um, Good question. I think I just wanted to start sharing, first off, quilting is a visual art, right? I mean, I was blogging before I started the YouTube channel because that was kind of the thing at the time. And that's still great. Blogging is still, it's kind of making a bit of resurgence, I would say, in the last few years as well. But it's not the same as, talking to someone like this, for example, right? And showing them, like, you can actually see me stitching at the machine. If I'm talking about free motion quilting, you can actually see what I'm doing at the machine. And the other thing is the ability to go back and watch it over and over again. You can quilt along with me, sort of thing if you want. Stop the video, go back if you need to, or, finish what you're doing and continue on. So I think that opportunity to be able to really show people, it's like having someone sit down with you in the studio, right?
Yeah.
And you can follow along with them. So I think, that was kind of what the impetus was to start that, is it would just seem to make sense for what we do. The surprising thing is probably, the number of people that start following you, and the number of people who are, as you say, a loyal following, and you hear from them. They email you or they leave comments and they ask questions. And also, I think what's surprising is how much I can learn from
Mhm.
the subscribers,
Mhm.
because, sometimes I will show them something, they say, I do it this way. And you go, oh, I'm going to try that as well. Because I always believe, one of the things I believe is that there's no just one way to do any technique,
Mhm.
right? I have my way that works for me. If you've got a way that works for you, I'd love to hear it, because, learning is great, and you can always learn something new, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's absolutely I always say there's no rules in quilting. And
Hmm.
I love going to different classes, even as an educator myself, I still love going to different classes and learning different techniques that other people do because I'm still building my book of how I like to quilt, and seeing a different perspective on it can kind of sometimes pull you out of the box, per
Yeah.
se, that you may be kind of locked into sometimes. Sometimes we all get into that creative rut,
Yeah.
and being able to get out of that and see, oh, I guess I could do it that way too. Like I've done many binding classes because let me tell you,
Mm,
I don't like binding one bit.
me
I will
either.
put that on the unit. Everyone knows this in the universe, but I'll say it again. But learning, different people's techniques or what different tools are out there to make it a little bit easier, is a great way. But like you mentioned, being able to connect with everybody, on
Hmm.
YouTube, especially, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like a lot of our clientele in quilting and sewing, a lot of them live in rural areas. And sometimes that's hard to get to a local quilt shop, or with a lot of the local quilt shops closing, right now, unfortunately.
Hmm. Hmm.
It sometimes puts a little bit of discourage on trying a new technique because you don't know who to talk to about it. But
True.
coming onto YouTube and doing it is an amazing way.
For
Yeah.
sure. And just to touch on that too, Corey, when you're talking about, kind of that feeling of isolation
Mhm,
during COVID,
mhm,
that was a big thing for a lot of people, because, our demographic is older, and a lot of them are alone. And I think having that opportunity to, connect with someone, or at least to have, to watch
mhm.
something new every week, or every so often, was really helpful for people. First off, they could learn, during a time when we couldn't go out and do anything.
Right,
And
right.
also that sense of connection, I think, was really critical for a lot of people during that time.
Yeah, especially during, lockdown and all those other things. It was nice to be
Mhm.
able to chat with somebody else besides the people within the 4 walls of your home, which made it definitely fun. So you did mention that there was, a membership that you're doing, and
Mhm.
I believe that's called the Quilters Way membership?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. So, tell us all about that. I wanna know all the details. I wanna know kinda what motivated you to start it, to build that kinda space for quilters. How has it been received? I'd like to know everything about that.
Okay, well, you can join us, Corey, and find out all about it. No, just kidding. We've been running this for, I think it's going on 7 years now. I was like, "Where's the time gone?"
Wow.
Again, it was kind of like memberships were starting to become, not a thing, but available, I guess, or that you could create a membership online. And so, yeah, so we started the Quilters Way about 7 years ago, and we had some test people come in to, make sure how things are going, and we've changed things again as technology improves. We have a community. It's community based, very large community based, but we also have courses, and tutorials and things like that. And at one time, they were on two separate platforms, which I just hated, but we didn't have the opportunity to have them both on one until things changed a little bit, and then we could bring the courses over onto the community platform. So it is, oh, it's a wonderful membership. I just love my members, many of which have been with me for the 7 years, actually. And what we do is, it's to encourage learning. As I said, community is a big part too. We bring together people from all over the world. We have people from all over the world in the Quilters Way, and we learn by doing. Again, we have evolved over those 7 years. We focused on different things. We've changed how we do things based on what the members are looking for. So that's another nice thing about the membership is it's constantly evolving, and you're able to evolve with it, I guess, and give the members what they're looking for. So what we do is we do small projects. We want to learn new techniques. So we will make small projects to learn a specific technique. And everything is like every week I have a topic Tuesday based on what we're doing, what part of the project we're doing. And those are always available in the Quilters Way. So if someone doesn't want to do that particular project or doesn't have time to do it right then, they can always go back. That information is always in there. We have a library full of all kinds of articles and information. There's courses in there as well. So it's a learning hub, but the community part of it is what is so amazing. It's what I had hoped to do when I started it. I had hoped to bring people together to support one another and to learn and grow together. And it's been amazing. There are so many people in the Quilters Way who have met in person. I've met a bunch of members in person as well, but they'll live fairly close to each other and they'll get together. Or sometimes when they're traveling, we've had ones that have traveled on vacation and met, with another member that's in that area. And they are so supportive, so much knowledge in that group as well. I mean, I don't know everything. I always say that. I don't know everything. I know a lot, but I don't know everything.
Right.
But there is so much knowledge in that group as well, and they are open to sharing. So encouraging, sharing, knowledgeable. It's just a fantastic space to be in. And, when I talk about supportive, I don't mean just in quilting. I mean in personal matters as well. A lot of them have become very tight friends. They talk to each other off the membership. I don't know what they're doing when they're not in the membership, but I know they're talking with each other and helping each other. If someone's got a problem with machine embroidery, or something like that, we have different people who are kind of experts in that area, and they will, connect off the platform and talk and resolve issues, phone calls, that kind of stuff, emails go on and that type of thing. So I'm really proud of the community that I've created in the Quilters Way. And I always say, like, I'm the host, but the members are what make it so special.
Definitely, yeah. I think the sense of community alone in the quilting community. I hate to say a word within a word, but like that the quilting community, quilters, sewers, like they are a different type of breed. Like they are
Mm,
wonderful human beings, and they're always giving. It's a very
mm,
tight knit. I've always called it, when I try to explain quilting, sewing, and crafting to my friends that don't do it, I'm like, it's a
yeah,
secret society. It's a thing. Once you're
that's okay.
inducted, you're never leaving. We keep
That's
you
true.
locked in, and you will have so many friends. You don't even know. It's an incredible place to be,
Yes,
and you
I
get to
agree.
learn so much from it. And
Mm.
everyone is so giving in the quilting
Yes, that's what
community.
I like about it too, right? Is so giving. It's not like I'm not telling you because it's my thing,
Right, right.
that they love sharing the knowledge and stuff. And, it keeps it interesting for other people too, I think, because you go, oh, something new I haven't tried or something new I didn't know, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You were talking about evolving. Have you ever? This is
Mhm.
off topic, but have you ever gone back and looked at like one of the first videos you've ever done?
Um, Not exactly necessarily the first video, but some of the older ones, yes, for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yes.
I
Things
think it.
they're still pretty good actually, I think, but, I go back and I look at them because I know more now, right?
Right, right.
So that sometimes I will redo some of them. It gives me an opportunity to go, "Oh, now I've tried this," or "Now I know this and I didn't at that time," or "Now this is available and it wasn't at that time."
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity to, redo those videos, if you will, give more information out to people and stuff as well. But I think we were pretty conscious of a lot of things already as far as background and clothing and things like that. So that was still okay. But
Well, I mean,
uh,
I get
you
yeah,
know,
it's good for you. I've gone back and looked at some of my earlier ones, and I'm like, "What was I thinking?" Because I mean, the content was still great, and like you said, it gives
yeah,
you a chance to upgrade it per se because you've learned more. But just looking
agreed.
at like, I remember my first one was done on my iPhone, and I didn't know about lighting, I didn't know about mics. I just went for it, and when I go back, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." gosh.
Was I thinking?
But people loved it, but they loved it because it
Well,
was they're
yeah.
there for the content, they're not there for the set dressing, basically.
Yeah, true.
But
Although if you're, if you were, if something's not quite right, my background behind me, the blue color that you see behind me, I switched one time, and it's a wide back is what that is actually, and I switched to one that was green, another color, and the repeat on it was just not quite. I don't know. It didn't show up on camera very well. Oh, I got a lot of comments
oh,
on
yes.
that.
Oh,
People did
yes.
not like that.
Yeah, no, they'll definitely
It was
tell you
funny.
in the comments,
Yeah.
"You should switch that, that's not for us."
It's not working. Yeah.
So, when you're getting, some of those comments from individuals and looking over
Mm,
some of the feedback that you receive, the emails, different things like that, what,
mhm,
I know a lot of quilters struggle with the confidence to do free motion quilting. What
mm,
are some of
mm,
the most, like, common fears that you see, and how do you help those quilters overcome those types of fears, or maybe, the most common misconception even,
mm.
that you hear that you help people overcome?
Yeah, that's a great question because, I do presentations for guilds and organizations, and one of them is how to conquer your fear of free motion quilting. And it's really interesting because when you talk about free motion quilting and someone hasn't tried it yet because they're scared, what they're scared of is they always say, "I'm scared I'm gonna ruin my quilt,"
Uh-huh.
right? That's like, pretty much everybody says almost exactly those words, right? And I always go, "Unless you take scissors to it, you can't ruin your quilt,"
Right,
like
right.
maybe the result isn't quite what you hope for, but but it's like it's really interesting to me that people that is kind of the thing that people are very intimidated about. And yet when you stand back and look at it, it's a technique like anything else. Like when you learn to quilt, when you learn to piece a quarter, stitch a quarter-inch seam, were you so scared you didn't even try it? No, but the free motion quilting though, that final thing we do to the quilt just terrifies people. And so first off, I tell them, like, let's face it, you're going to be bad when you first start. Like it's not going to be great. So get that in your head. I think a lot of it is, that fear. It's a mental thing, right? An emotional mental thing. And I think that if you just think, okay, I'm going to sit down on this quilt. And by the way, don't use your heirloom quilt on your first quilt, right? Take a small, right? Take a small project and just commit to it and it's just thread into fabric, people. It's not rocket science here, but just think it's going to be crappy. My stitch length isn't going to be great. And maybe my design, my curves aren't going to be nice and smooth, and go ahead and go for it. And if that's what you get as a result, hey, you were successful. And that should build your confidence, right?
Right.
It's kind of funny, but I mean, seriously, like just start doing it. Like get set up properly. And I have a free course on how to get set up, how to get your machine set up, and everything.
Ooh,
That's on my website. And so just commit to it and just think it's not going to be great at first, but if you practice, and the more you do, and the more you practice, it will get better, right? You're starting here. It doesn't go, you don't go into the minus. It gets better. But I think it's a lot of it's a mental game. And you just have to realize that, just start doing it. It'll get better. It'll be okay. It'll be
yeah,
okay. And
no,
eventually it just kind of clicks one day. It just kind of clicks and so you stop, I should say, worrying about all the things that you're worried about as you're stitching, and it just starts to become more natural.
yeah, more
So,
natural and a lot more fun at that point
yes,
too.
a lot more fun. Yeah.
When when you're not as, critical on yourself getting through
Yes.
those things. So, listening to kinda how you help people approach that, I know that you often emphasize a lot on creativity and mindset. That's that getting
Mhm.
in that mindset that you can do it, it's just thread and
Right.
fabric, we're gonna be good, everything's fine.
Be fine.
So talk to us about, like, why that's such, because I know that's a pillar in, like, your education and teaching style, like, the creativity and the mindset. Talk to us about how you kind of
Mhm.
got to that point when, in coming to, like, the realization, like, that's really kinda what you wanted to focus on a lot in teaching, when you're doing quilting and sewing, to help individuals.
Yeah. Well, I think if you come at like you want to do something, but you've got this block, and the block is yourself, right? It's your mind. And I mean, this is, years of me, facing this as well. Let's not
Mhm.
kid ourselves, right? When you're into these things. But I think, if you step back and you just take a deep breath and think of it from a logical, practical place, because our emotions get the better of us a lot of times, right?
Mm.
And we psych ourselves out. And so I think if you just step back and go, okay, wait a minute here. We're just stitching. I've already been stitching on my quilt. I pieced it all together. That went okay. And just start, it gets you into a different frame of mind, a more positive, confident frame of mind. Then you believe you can do it. So if you believe you can do it, you probably you will be able to do it, right? Not probably, you will be able to do it. And I think just that it's kind of a bit of self-talk. And I guess because I've done it with myself over the years, that I just found it worked for me, and I figured it would work for other people as well. And
Yeah.
so I just encourage them to get your mind in the right place first. That's what I tell people when they sit down to quilt, free motion quilting, or quilting your quilt, is to get yourself in the right mindset first. And, that makes everything so much easier, and the results will be better, and you'll feel more confident. And then you'll feel more confident to try next time as well, knowing that you can be successful.
For sure. Yeah. I call, you talk about that, our emotions sometimes get the best of us, or we're kind of our biggest roadblock, even if you would say.
Right.
I call that my inner saboteur.
Yeah,
We've all got that.
we all
And
do.
having that conversation with yourself, like, listen, you going to go over there in the corner, and I'm going to focus on that. We're going to get this done,
Yes.
because we can
Yes.
do it. And yeah, it is a big. I'm afraid that I'm going to mess it up, or I'm gonna afraid that I'm going to ruin my machine, or I'm going to break
That too.
something, or something. There's so many different kind of voices in your head, I would say, that kind of tell you, no, you can't do it, but you can 100% do it, because
You can
my
do it.
my great mentor, Linda V. Taylor, she always says, if I can do it, you can do it. And
Yes.
we all started
Absolutely.
somewhere,
Yes. And
so
that's right. We all start at the same place, right?
yeah.
Nobody sits down at the machine and creates, beautiful quilts like she does, right? Like, no,
Right.
nobody does that. Everybody started at the same place. The difference is they persevere, they practiced, and look what people can create, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yes. Yes.
It's such a great way. And as you talk about, persevering and keep going, I get the impression from you that you're a big self-starter, and you like to just get in there and get going with it. So I'd like to know, kind of, what is like a day in the life like for you running Chatterbox quilts, like, full time? Because you've got content creation, you've got personal quilting, you've got teaching, you've got guild things. Like, kind of, what's that day in the life of Kim?
Not as organized as it should be.
Same.
I'll admit that right now. I did mention my squirrel brain, didn't I? So yeah, I do have all the things. Okay, so first off, I have a to-do list. Okay, so on my computer I have a to-do list. Well, I have two things. I have an electronic, I should say, calendar. I've
Mhm.
got a book, a paper, if you will, calendar as well, and things are written down both places. Depending on, so if I'm just, it's in my kitchen, the calendar, and so I can just take a look quickly and see what's going on today. But my notes, I will have everything exactly what I need to do in the order I need to do them.
Mhm.
And then my husband will usually come up and say, do you have that on your list as well? But we as far as, like, say, YouTube, for example, we batch film our YouTube videos, so we might film 10 or 12 videos at a time. I release 2 videos a week right now anyway. And so we will, I know how far my videos, the last one's going to be May, whatever, let's say.
Right.
So I know before then I have to have my samples done and all that to do my YouTube filming. And then my husband takes it off and edits and everything. And then we schedule and all that. And then I will have other projects that I have to have done. So basically, I have a list. I have to have a list to keep me on track. Otherwise, I go off into, something that caught my eye on the internet, for example, that I want to
Yeah.
try.
Yep, yep.
So yeah, so that's the big one. Is I work very well with deadlines. I've never missed a deadline. I may be right up to a deadline, but I never miss a deadline, and that kind of keeps me motivated, as well, to make sure I'm where I need to be with the different samples or projects I'm working on, because as well as my own things I do, like YouTube and courses and that type of thing. Oh, and I have another membership on YouTube as well called Patchwork Pals as well.
Oh, okay.
So I have that too. That's just started this year. I also work with, I'm an ambassador for Island Boutique and also Janome Canada. So I have projects every month for Island Boutique, that I have to do as well. So, Yes, I need to keep going all the time. Let me say that way. And as far as personal quilting, I'll some of that will come in when I'm doing some of these projects. So, for example, for Island Boutique and that, I'll have the opportunity to work on certain things that maybe I have always wanted to do a technique that I always wanted to do, for example. So I kind of bring that in. But the personal quilting is kind of it takes a backseat, I gotta admit, to all the other things, right? So, but sometimes YouTube is, for YouTube, it's something again that I would like to do that I think other people would enjoy as well. So it kind of fits in there.
Yeah. So how long have you been you brought up a few different things in there that one I
Mhm.
didn't know. So you have
Yeah.
another membership. It's what was it called? Patchwork Pals?
Yes, it's
Okay,
called
talk
Patrick.
talk to us about that. What is that one like?
Okay, so that's a yeah, that's something fairly new that just started. I think it just started in January actually. So that's
Mhm.
on YouTube. So it's a way to support my YouTube channel or my small business. People pay a small monthly subscription, and then they get different perks. So, for example, if they comment, I answer their comments before other people's. If they're asking a question, for example, they get early access to my videos as well, so they can see them before before they're released to the public. They have custom emojis that they can use. And they get little badges as well. So people love that. So they get different badges that change color the longer they've been in the membership as well. So that's something new that I thought I would step into and see how that works. So yeah, that's something else new that I thought I would just, that caught my eye and I thought I would try.
All right, yeah, I'm here for it. That's
So
kind of cool.
yeah, so
Um,
you'll see that on my YouTube videos. There's a little join button underneath, and if you click on that, it gives you more information. It's not like you're going to join right away, but it gives you more information on it, and then you can decide if you'd like to join that too.
Oh, I want a different colored badge. I'm gonna have to log on to your YouTube channel. I want a little badge. That's cool.
I know
uh,
people like
I
badges.
know, I know. Okay, so then also talk to us about. I just had Miriam Coffee on the podcast a few weeks ago,
Oh yeah,
from Janome, and so you do Janome Canada as well. You're an artisan for them. How did that process come about? How did you get involved with Janome, and kind of tell us all about it? Because she was saying how much she loves Janome, and I like talking to people
great.
about what brands they love so much.
Yes, and actually Miriam, I love Miriam. I finally got to meet Miriam in person at QuiltCon, so it was it was great to finally meet her
Yay!
in person. Yeah, I know, right? So, yes, well, I there was an opportunity. I've been with them for 7 years, I guess, too. So, there was an opportunity to join them as an artisan 7 years ago, I guess. And I had actually bought a Janome sewing machine because I was looking for speed control. The machine I was using didn't have speed control. And so the first machine I bought with speed control was a Janome. And I really liked it. I still, obviously I work with Janomes all the time, right? I have, let me think, three different machines are Janome in the studio right now, I guess. So yes, I quite like them.
Yeah.
And I've worked with them over the years. I worked on their blog. Right now, I don't do blogging for them, but I do projects for them. I get to work with the latest machines, which is great. And I often compare them to like whatever brand you like. I compare them, it's like a car, right? So you get a new one, but the buttons look the same. There may be extra features on it that you have to learn how to use, but it all works kind of the same, right? So it's already kind of familiar, just like if you're working or buying a new car and it's the same brand as what you already have, it kind of feels the same. So it's kind of the same way. But, right now I'm sitting, what you see, the part that you see here is actually my MC17, which is a combination embroidery and sewing machine. And it's got a huge throat in it and it comes with like all the feet you need. It's like the top of the line model and they're just so much fun to use. I really enjoy working with the Janome machines. I got to say, I haven't had any issues, knock wood. I haven't had any issues with them at all. They've got me into machine embroidery as well. I have my own separate embroidery machine too, plus the one that comes with this machine. And that was something I never thought I'd do either. But I got into that through actually one of my members in the Quilters Way, who's a big machine embroiderer. And he was saying, well, you got this machine, you better start using it. So that's another rabbit hole, right? But yeah, I enjoy working with them. I love when I first met you in Edmonton at Quilt Canada year before, whenever that was.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know. It all
time
blurs
goes by,
together
right?
now, right?
Last year. I was at the booth doing some demos for Janome at that time, which I really enjoyed doing that as well and getting to meet people and that type of thing. But yeah, it's been a great experience for me with the machine, and I've learned so many new techniques and new ways to learn use a sewing machine by working with Janome Canada as well. So it's been a good experience for me as well. And then I get to meet people like Miriam and some of the other people in the States as well. So that's fun too.
Yeah, just building that sense of community as well,
Hmm.
as you're doing that. Yeah, I was on the, oh, I just talked about it too, the Continental M8.
Oh, right.
That what it
Yes.
is? Yeah. When I was
Yes.
teaching in
Yes.
Australia, they had them as the machines in the
Hmm.
classroom, and I was like, "Whoa,
Nice.
this is a beast. This is a good
Yeah.
machine, got a big throat, like you said, has all the feet you need, got great lighting."
Yeah.
And the team there was absolutely incredible to work with.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun and cool to be on. But
Yeah.
yeah, we could definitely go down a bunch of rabbit holes if we start talking about machines together.
Yeah. And everybody has their favorites, and that's great because, there's a lot of other good machines on the market, like, don't get me wrong, right? But, if you find the machine that works for you, a brand that you really like I said, getting the newer model or whatever is very already very familiar. So it's kind of I think most people tend to stick with brands and, get the new machines that are the same brand. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's I guess that's a good way to put it, because like, I
Yeah.
started for instance, I've started with, way back when I started sewing, I started with Juki, and
Ah,
when you get very comfortable like you said, when you get very comfortable with a brand, you just continue to
yeah,
stay, with the brand, so now I've got,
right.
oh, it's sad to say, 4 or 5 maybe? But you can't stop, you can't never have to admit they're just wonderful.
Well,
Um,
if one's in the shop, you've got to at least have one backup, right? I
of
mean,
course,
yeah,
you gotta
at
have
least
one
2 machines, at
backup.
least.
You've gotta have at least one retreat machine, you know?
There you go, yeah,
It's
true.
like, I'm very fortunate to say that because, I know not a lot no, some people may only have 1 or none.
Right.
But yeah, once you get in with one brand, that's kinda where you like to stay
Yeah.
sometimes, because I guess, like you said, it's kind of a mind thing about
Familiar.
familiar what is that word?
Familiarity.
Familiarity? There you go, that.
Like,
It's fine, it's fine. You've got me, I've got you, we're all good. That's all that
yeah.
matters. And I guess my stumbling over my words brings me into my next question for you. In a lot of
Mm,
your videos, you talk about progress over perfection, which is what I was just
mm,
trying to do. I was making progress, not perfecting it by any means. Um, but that's a very big message that you push out to a lot of quilters at that entry level. So, kind of talk to me about how that
mhm.
gets them past that mindset that we were talking about earlier, kind of gets them in the right mindset over the block and gets them feeling okay that we've got progress over perfection.
Right. Well, first off, we're humans, so nothing we make is perfect, right? We try our best. Like, I'm not saying put out, garbage. I'm saying, you know, do your best. And I
Yeah,
also tell people something else is that, where you are right now in your quilting is exactly where you should be, right? Like, be happy with where you are right now and always keep your first samples as first things you did, right?
of course.
Because when you look back, you'll see how far you've come. So you make that progress, or, also say practice makes improvement. And you're improving with every quilt you make because it's true, right? The more you practice, the better you get. That's just the way it works with everything, right? Not
Right.
just quilting. But I think it's important to realize because again, it comes into that. The other thing is that comparison to others, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about here is, don't go compare yourself to somebody else who's been doing this for 15 or 20 years, and you're just starting because that's not a fair comparison. It's, they were, like we said before, they were at the same place you were when they started. And look at how far they've come. So as you learn more, as you practice more, you will get better. Don't strive for, strive to be good. And I often say perfect dish is good as well. Like if your seams aren't exactly matching, but they're pretty close, that's great. That's good. I mean, don't beat yourself up because they're not perfect, right? Strive to do your best and, realize that as you progress, you'll get better. And that's what we're trying to do with every quote we make. We're just trying to get a little bit better, right? Compete against yourself. Don't compete against other people, right?
Yes, that is my biggest thing I tell myself when I'm working, like, on a show quilt, like, I've got one mounted over there right now that I
Yeah,
need to finish. But I tell myself I'm only in competition with myself.
right.
I wanna keep striving to be better, because like you said, you can't it's hard to compare yourself to someone that's been doing it for 20 years, 25 years, 10 years,
Oh,
5
yeah.
years, like, it's
Yeah.
hard to do that, especially when you're starting out.
Right.
And I like that you said keep your original sample,
Mhm.
because my original one is hanging right behind the camera,
Uh-huh.
and I look at it every day as a reminder that, oh gosh, when I started, my stars were starfish. I didn't know about spacing of my patterns. I've got density all messed up. Things weren't lined up. It's just, but I
Yeah.
was so proud of that first sample that like I did
Yeah.
it by myself.
Yeah.
So it still hangs there right next to, an award-winning piece because I think that my original sampler, in my opinion, was an award-winning piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
It got me into it, and now I'm here today talking with a wonderful individual like you. So it's
Well,
a great place
yeah,
to be.
it's also, the other thing I tell people is like, when you're sitting down and you're making that first quilt, you're making a quilt. Look at you
Mhm.
go, right? You're making a quilt because so many people don't do anything like this.
Right,
Nothing creative, artistic, or, look at you, what you did, right? So
right.
you should be proud of yourself for that, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, yeah. And you'll learn, like you say, if you look at your first quilt and you say, okay, so, I didn't like this, or I wish I'd done this instead, or whatever, that's a learning moment too, right? That you can take forward into your future projects.
yeah.
So yeah.
As you kinda build that design library, that muscle memory,
Yep.
you'll get better and better as you're going. So,
Yeah.
another thing that I wanted to chat with you about is
Mhm.
you and I have both been in the space of quilting space for quite some time. And
Mhm.
I always like to hear how individuals perceive kind of how the quilting world has shifted
Mm.
over this kind of the range that you've been in it, especially with the rise of social media. We've talked about YouTube, we've talked about memberships, we've talked about all sorts of things. But what are some of your personal experiences that you've seen with the shift of the quilting world, or how it's evolved, or how it's grown
Mhm.
from how it started?
Well, I think, obviously the modern quilt movement is a
Mhm.
big one, right? And actually one of the things, things go in cycles, I find, right? So, you're moving into, these kind of modern quilts. I've been around for a while, really, but I mean, they're still kind of new to the quilting world, or the newest thing. But
Right,
what I thought was interesting when I was at QuiltCon was looking at some of these pieces, and what surprised me was some of the old school things that were going on in these quilts, like hand quilting
hmm,
or hand embroidery, right? That surprised me. Hand piece, some of them, and that really surprised me that that's something that's like old school, right? Handwork. Is coming back into vogue again, as it will. And I love hand embroidery. I don't get time to do much of it, but I really like doing it. And I've been thinking for quite a while that this would be great to add to my quilts, actually. So seeing that happening in the modern quilt movement is very, very interesting, I think. But I think, with the availability of online classes and information, I think that's been a huge change in the quilting industry. And again, I come back to the pandemic
hmm,
because at that time, before, like that's kind of a dividing line as far as, Zoom presentations and the ability to speak to a whole guild on the other side of the world
right,
through, my computer, wasn't something that people were looking at ahead or before that, I should say, especially guilds. Like during the COVID, like, my presentations online went, sky high, right?
right,
Luckily, I was already doing YouTube, so I was all set up to do that. But I
right.
saw a huge shift from other people who hadn't been doing that before. Like you had to get on board. You got left behind, I guess, is
Oh, no
what I would
question.
say,
Yeah.
right? And I think to my mind, like there's advantages to in-person classes, there's advantages to online classes. For me, because I do a lot of online classes, right, is that ability to watch it on your own time, the ability to go back and watch it over and over again, something you always have there as a reference, and the ability to, if it's a well film class, the ability to actually see what's going on at the needle too. Because, I'm sure like if you're talking about a free motion quilting class in person, and that connection, everything is great. But if you're in a larger class, it's difficult to see, if they're not filming and it's up on a screen, it's difficult to see what's going on. You're all gathered around the teacher's machine trying to see what they're doing, right?
Right.
Whereas an online class, and I might be a little prejudiced about this, but an online class has that ability where you can actually get that visual that you need, and the ability afterwards to ask questions too, which again, in person class, you don't have that option. So, I think the pandemic, I mean, bad things obviously was a bad thing, but there's sometimes good things that come out of that. And I think the ability to do Zoom presentations, Zoom classes, pre-recorded classes, all of that has been a huge thing. And I've got to say, I was really surprised, again, with an older demographic, I was really surprised how quickly people jumped onto that and could very quickly figure out, how to get into a Zoom presentation. Although, of course, you still have to tell people, I'm sorry, you're still muted. Can you unmute yourself so we can hear
Yes.
you?
Yes, yeah, I believe that happens with everybody. I'm in
It
meetings
does. It's funny.
all the time, and I'm like, "All right,
Yeah.
guys, we've been doing this for
Go
how
ahead.
long? Let's unmute. Come on, we've got this." Even
Yeah.
at work. So that's definitely think I do agree that I think COVID was a big turning point for the overall education side of the quilting
Mhm.
community.
Yeah.
Because, like you mentioned, being able to speak to a guild on the other side of the world, or a few months ago, I think it was back in January, I did a guild presentation in Calgary,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
being able to demonstrate and sit here at my table, talk and
Yeah.
draw, and then go over to my machine and not have to travel to do that
True. Yes.
is really beneficial for not only the students but also for the teacher,
Absolutely.
because you can share more of your message, and you can be a little bit more engaging even with
True.
those individuals when they're right on the other side of the camera lens,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they can answer and ask those questions. And I think you brought up a good point as well. In in-person classes, a lot of people, even though we've talked about it's all good. Progress over
Mhm.
perfection. Put your inner saboteur over in the corner. A lot of people are afraid to raise their hand and ask a question,
Good
and
point.
in the
True.
middle of everybody. But on a Zoom presentation, I have not
That's a good
met
point.
one person that's afraid to go in that chat box and
Hey,
pop
well,
in a
yeah, and ask a
chat,
question.
to ask
Yeah.
a question. And I think that's incredible
Mhm.
that it just kind of brings down that veil a little bit,
Yes.
and we can get those questions answered and have that confidence built up. So when you're done with the class, you're off to your machine and you're ready to go.
Yes, that's a really good point, actually. And the other thing is, I'll say to people, like, if there's any questions, I'll answer them at the end of the presentation. And, like you said, then you look in the chat and there's all these questions coming. But I also say, there's no stupid questions. Like, someone
Right.
say, "Oh, this is probably stupid," and I'm going, "No, no, no. There's no stupid questions, because I guarantee you, if you're thinking about asking that question, you're not the only one wondering about that. I
Right.
guarantee you, there's other people in there too." So I always encourage people, like, don't be afraid, but you're right. In an in-person class, the person who's a little more shy, they're hesitant to raise their hand, and they will often think the same thing. Oh, I'm the only one who's going to ask this. People are going to think I'm
Mhm.
taking up time, right? Wasting time. But yeah, so there's more opportunity for sure to have those questions asked and be able to answer that, especially that one person who's going, I don't understand, I don't get it,
Right.
that they can ask, and somebody else will say, I wondered the same thing. And you're going, great. So now we've got you guys off on the right track here now.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Good way to bring everyone together and be like, it's okay to ask the questions. Let's get them out now and let's keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Sure.
Earlier you mentioned that you have a free course on your website,
Mhm.
intro into learning kind of how to get your machine set up,
Yeah.
for a bunch of things, I'm sure, but also for free motion quilting. Um, for someone that's just getting started with machine
Mhm.
quilting, kind of what's
Mhm.
one tip that you wish every beginner just knew right off the bat? One thing to kind of help them succeed.
Well, probably the first thing is, like I'd mentioned before, like the first, when you first start, and were you talking about like free motion quilting, that kind of quilting, or
Yeah,
just quilting in general? Okay. All right.
anything in general, whatever you want to go with.
Okay. All right. So, like, you've got to learn how to do this. You're not supposed to know this already. So you may make mistakes, and that's okay. That's part of the learning process. If you never make mistakes, you never learn, really, right? Like, you make a mistake and you won't do it again, hopefully. But you will learn, like, everything you do that isn't quite right, maybe you'll learn either a better way to do it, or, a different way totally than what you were trying to do, or make sure that what you were trying to do, you are able to do it successfully. It might mean doing more research or asking some questions, that type of thing. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions is also important when you're a beginner, right? To make sure you actually understand, because people learn different ways, right? So if I'm explaining something and you're not getting it, then I, as a teacher, have to think of a different way to explain that to you that you will understand, right? It's not your problem, it's my problem, right?
Right.
It's not really a problem, but you know what I'm saying. Um, so, but I also think like get over yourself and just try it. Just
Mhm.
try and realize that you're starting here and you're going to go up. So don't be afraid to try and don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Like you said, that inner saboteur. Don't listen to that person,
Mm-mm.
right? Just realize that is the learning process, right? And I
Yeah.
also think it's really interesting between, I hate to say this maybe or to generalize, but men in quilting, I think, are a little different than women in quilting. The guys I know that quilt, they don't worry if they're making mistakes, or they'll just go through and they'll just go, yeah, there it is. Okay, well, could have done better, but let's move on to the next quilt.
Uh,
They
uh,
don't beat themselves up as much as women, in my experience, anyway.
yeah.
So that's a healthier attitude, I think.
I Yeah, I would say from the experiences that I've had and from the stories that I've heard and the things that I've seen, I would agree with you that
Mm,
it's kind of a different, mindset. A lot of people that I know,
mindset.
like, for instance, when we were selling long arm machines and we
Mm,
would have the husband and wife come in to purchase their machine, and the husband's
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with this isn't me, this is for her, I'm just here to support, write the check, call it a
Yeah.
day, make sure we've got enough room in the house or build a
Yeah.
garage or whatever we're doing. And then a year later they come back and he's the one doing a lot of the quilting, just because he just jumped into it one day and said, I'm
Yeah.
just going to go for it.
Hey, it's kind
And
of
yeah,
fun. Let's try this. Yeah.
yeah, let's just see how it goes. But I
Yeah.
think that's a funny tip that you bring up, or a funny mindset that you bring up. I think
Yeah.
that's funny. Um, so over the course of our conversation, we've talked about you publishing patterns, you're doing courses, you're doing guild presentations, you're doing video content on YouTube, you're doing all
Mm,
these amazing things. So as you are present, Kim, and
mm.
you look back to past Kim, where do you kind of tell yourself, "Wow, I can't believe I did that." Like, what was that? I can't believe accomplished that moment in this
Um,
journey that you've had.
Yeah, that's a tough one, actually.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about, different things. I guess probably one of the things that when it really, struck me is, you're doing this, it's real kind of thing, I guess, if
Oh
you
yeah.
will, is,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, walking into a bookstore, which has magazines and seeing one of my quilts on the cover of a magazine on the stand, right, is kind of like, there I am, right? There I
Right.
am. That's me, and you try to loiter for a little bit, but anyway, until somebody might ask, but I think, that's probably that, or, even I guess what struck me a bit, because I love talking to people, I'm a people
Mhm.
person, as you can tell, going into QuiltCon and being stopped by a lady who recognized me, like I will get recognized at quilt shows in Canada. I'm used to that.
Mhm.
But getting recognized in the States kind of surprised me. And this lady, it was actually in the lunch line. She was so excited to meet me. And I'm excited to meet people too who recognize me from YouTube. And I love hearing that I've helped them. Right. Like I was really struggling with something and I found your YouTube video and it's helped me so much. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of all it is, right? It's like being able to help people and help them get over a hurdle that they had, and that's allowed them to enjoy their quilting so much more. I think that's probably the proudest moment for me, I would say.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would I would have to agree. My biggest "I can't believe I did that" was when the first video that I published on YouTube, was again, I've gone back and looked at it. Everyone can scroll back and look at it too. It was not bad by any means, but it's to go back, and be like, "I can't believe I did that." And I don't know if you knew this about my story or about my journey, and granted, this
Mm.
podcast is not about me, but I am my favorite topic. Um my little brother is the one that forced me to go on YouTube. He
Oh, I didn't
he
know that. No.
he told me that, YouTube is the place to be, and you've gotta try it. And I was like, Ryan, no one's gonna wanna watch me. It's not that serious. I just quilt, I just do my thing, no one cares. And he was like, trust me, people are gonna care.
Yeah.
And he was like in middle
And you
school when he told me to do
oh,
it, you know, and I did it, and now here we are. So shout out to
yeah.
Ryan. But
Yeah, there
it
you go.
was
He's right.
yeah, it's definitely one of those. I can't believe I'm really doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, and then you move on, right? Like, and every so often, I think it's important to, like, whether you're in the business like we are, or whether, you're quilting at home, making your quilts and everything, is to stop every so often and look back and give yourself a pat on the back. I don't think we do that often enough, like,
Mm-mm,
right?
mhm.
To say, "Wow, look what I've accomplished." I will go back. It's kind of funny, but I will go back and look at, I forget, like I've done this YouTube video or I've done this blog post or article, whatever it is, and I've moved on.
Right.
And, my husband will remember those things better than me, right? And he'll go, "Well, you did a whole thing on that." And I go, "Did I?" And I go back, "Oh, yeah. Well, that's great information. I can still use that." Right? I
Golly,
just,
that person on the screen, she knows what she's talking about.
know
Like,
what she's talking about, right? And I do go back and watch myself sometimes for, like you mentioned, how you hate binding. So I have a few binding videos, and I will go back and watch, how exactly am I doing that? How do I put those strips together again? I go back and watch myself because I'm going, oh yeah, okay, because like now I know because I can't quite get it right when I'm
right.
doing it binding, and I'm not a great thing. But anyway,
No,
I
it's
do a good job on bindings, but I don't like doing bindings
yeah,
either.
it's not my favorite by any means, but
Yeah.
going back and remembering, and that's a lot of things for content creators that I don't think a lot of people know is we've got it up here, but
Hmm.
I hate to say this, and you can disagree with me if you'd like, but once I put it onto the interwebs and I say, "Here you go, folks," it
Yeah.
goes from the front to the back.
Oh yeah.
And because
Yeah. I'm very much like that.
I'm on my next video thought
Yeah.
or my
On
next
the next
blog
thing.
thought or my next newsletter thought, like I'm on to the next
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And going back and looking, it's like I was joking with you earlier. It's like, he knows what he's talking about. Man, that's a good one. Like it's just funny
Yeah.
sometimes.
I'm the same. I'm exactly the same way as, like, yeah, I get it out there, it's all done and everything, and then I moved on, and then like I say, I have to look back sometimes. I mean, 14 years of videos is a
Right.
lot of videos, and blogs. We were blogging before that, and those are still available as well. But it's just like there's a lot of content, or even in the membership. When I look into the membership, again, my husband will say, "Well, we have a whole series on that." I'm going, "Do we? Did I do? Yeah, I." Yeah, I guess we do. So, because you forget, you just move on,
Yeah.
and. But what also I think is interesting too, when you say that, is if I, who created it, have forgotten it's there, other people may
Hmm.
need to be reminded occasionally
Hmm.
that I have, a whole bunch of information on, that particular topic, right? Because they will forget too, I'm sure. So,
Agreed. Yeah, no,
yeah.
totally. I totally agree. So I'm sure everyone that's been listening or watching over over the course of this recording is wondering, okay, where you've been talking about all this amazing stuff that Kim's doing. Corey, you got to tell us where we can find out more about Kim. So Kim, it's now that point in the podcast where you get to let everybody know, how do people find out more about you? Where can they go and follow you? Where can they go learn more about you? What are the websites, the YouTubes, all the good things?
All the good things. Okay, well, if you go to my website, which is www.chatterboxquilts.com, you'll find all the other things. But basically, if you search for Chatterbox Quilts, you'll find me anywhere. You'll find me on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, Pinterest. Not on Twitter, not on Twitter. Blue Sky, though. On there now too. So you'll find me at all the places. And yeah, that's basically where you can find everything. My courses are on my website, so you can see that. Or if you're interested in booking me for a presentation, you can always email me too, kim@chatterboxquilts.com. And I also have my presentations and workshops on the website as well, so you can check those out. And if you're interested, I'm coming out with some new presentations for 2026 as well. So, and some new courses are coming as well. There's a few things coming.
Lovely,
So yeah.
lovely. Well, I will make sure to have all of that information for where they can find you, your website, and everything linked in the description below,
Perfect.
so everyone can learn a little bit more about you and get on board and maybe become part of that Quilters Way, and even that new Patchwork Pals
Great.
that you've got going on.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I've gotten, you hinted at it for a second. Kim, I'm a nosy person. You know I am. You
Yeah.
said that you've got some new things coming out. Can you give us a hint? Just a
Mhm, mhm.
little tiny tidbit
A
of
little tiny tidbit.
what's coming back, what's coming out in
Well,
2026.
I would say if you take a look, depending on when this airs too, if you take a look at Creative Spark online, I've done some presentations for them. They are the online learning portion of C&T Publishing. They just have a new website actually where they combined the two of them, which is brilliant. You keep your eye on that in the next few months because there's something coming out for me on that website, which I'm very excited about. They are a great company to work with. If you're thinking about doing an online course, by the way, you can contact them. Super helpful, really nice people to work with. So that's one thing coming out. I've got a new presentation I'm working on coming up I guess in 2026, probably. Yeah. On faux trapunto, I can tell you that. So that will be a new
Ooh,
addition too. So that's something that's really fun to do. And yeah, it's
that's
lots
cool.
of information in that one. But yeah,
Oh,
fun to do.
awesome. Yes. Well, I can't wait to see that or see or learn more about it, and
Yeah,
then figure out how I can hop into one of those presentations because
yeah,
I love Trapunto, and so if we're doing faux Trapunto, even better.
even better. Yeah, even better.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me today. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I hope you've had a good time. I've had a great time learning more about your story, about everything that you've got going on. And again, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to chat with us.
Yeah, it's been great, Corey. I really enjoyed it too. And thanks so much for having me on. I do appreciate it.
You are very welcome, and I will see you next time. All right, everybody. That was our wonderful podcast episode with Kim from Chatterbox Quilts. If you want to learn a little bit more about her, I have all of the information linked in the description below. Go over to her website, check her out, hop onto her social medias, give her a follow, learn more about everything that she's doing on YouTube because it is incredible. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, us and her, me, all of us here at the Crafters Roundtable. I will see you next time. Bye, guys.